Hey guys, what is going on? McMull2 here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are taking a look at Farmboy Luke in Phase 2 with clones. This is a pretty good spot to test out the Zeta on his unique to see just how good it's going to be for the raids, to see what kind of damage you can expect from it. This is going to be a pretty interesting Zeta to look at because it's pretty much tailored just for raids. So we'll talk about the mods I'm running on this team, we'll talk about the overall strategy and why this is a good spot to test it out, and then we'll talk about what other teams you could use with Farmboy Luke and just what you can expect from getting the Zeta here. First up, we have Commander Cody, and he's running the exact same mods I used for the other video where we were testing out Commander Luke. You want to go for speed, stacking up that crit chance as well. You can see this triangle has crit chance. If you can get that for the primary on the mod, that's nice, but you want to focus mainly on speed for Cody. Get him as fast as possible. You can see 241 speed here, and then the Zeta on his Ghost Company Commander is absolutely required for the Phase 2 run, because otherwise the clone's just going to die off and you just won't have a chance to do a lot of damage here. For Farmboy Luke, you want to look at running a crit damage and crit chance mod set on him. You really want to make sure he gets the 60% physical crit chance, because at that point he'll get 25% from his unique and another 15% from Commander Cody. So he'll be able to stack up to 100% crit chance at that point. He'll always be able to land critical hits, and that's pretty important here. For his abilities, you want to make sure you have the Zeta on his unique draw bead, because that is how you're going to get the stacking crit damage, which we'll go into more detail later on. And then for his other abilities, you need to have the Omega on his Frontier Marksmanship, because that's going to give him 40% turn meter every time he lands a critical hit with his basic attack. So making sure you get those two abilities maxed out is key here, but otherwise getting some bonus survivability on him is not a bad idea. Getting some bonus health and some bonus protection would be nice to have, because he's gonna be a little squishy for this fight, and that's something else we'll also cover too. But overall, making sure you stack up a lot of physical offense on him with the secondaries on his mods is a pretty good idea here, and making sure you get that 36% crit damage on his triangle mod is going to be key as well. For 5s, I'm running crit chance and crit damage on him. Making sure that you can get up to 60% on your clones is going to be key here to make sure you can get those bonus cooldowns on the 2/12 attacks. Otherwise, making sure you get bonus potency on his cross is going to be key for his speed down debuff and the double taps occurring from that with the Omega on his basic. And then the offense primary on his arrow mod really helps boost up his damage as well. Making sure that you can just get some good crit chance on his secondaries is going to be the key here. For his abilities, you do want the Omega on his basic. You don't want to do the Zeta on his unique necessarily. It's not going to be a huge boost in damage. It will make your topples easier, but it's not necessarily a required Zeta. For Echo, it's pretty much the exact same archetype for 5s. You want to make sure you get some crit chance and crit damage on him, up to about 60% physical crit chance. Running offense primaries on the arrow and cross is going to be a really good way to boost up the damage from Echo. He's probably going to be one of your most attacking characters overall, so making sure he gets some nice damage in with all those assists is really going to be key here to really boosting your damage. But otherwise, nothing too crazy, just making sure you get physical crit chance stacked up on his secondaries, and he should pretty much be the exact same as 5s. And lastly, with Clone Sergeant Phase 1, you want to really stack up the physical damage on him, so that's why you have the offense primaries on the arrow and the cross mods. For his secondaries, you're going to go for offense on that, and then the triangle has the crit damage primary. For his physical crit chance, you only need him at 52% so that he gets the bonus 18% from his unique and another 30% from Commander Cody. He'll be crit capped just like Farmboy Luke in that regard. So making sure that he can hit that 100% crit chance is going to be pretty easy, since he already has a base of like 40%. So it's not too hard to get him up to that crit cap. Otherwise, making sure you stack up the physical damage on him is going to be vital. For his abilities, make sure you Omega both the Z6 Rotary Blaster Basic and the unique, so that he is always getting the offense up and the bonus turn meter from landing critical hits, and he's really pretty much going to be operating the same manner as your Farmboy Luke. For the overall strategy for this team, it's pretty straightforward. The one thing you have to be doing is doing the 2/12 attacks as much as possible. That's why you want to build up the crit chance on the clones overall. That way you can get all the critical hits in to reduce the cooldown on 2/12 to make sure that Luke goes as much as possible. Every time that Luke is going to assist with the 2/12 attack, he's going to be gaining 40% turn meter thanks to his basic, where every time he scores a critical hit, he gains 40% turn meter. Now, one other thing to add in with this is that Clone Sergeant gains 50% turn meter on his basic whenever he scores a critical hit. So both him and Farmboy Luke are going to be moving quite often with the 2/12 attacks. This is going to make them do a lot of damage. They're really going to be heavy hitters. But also, going back to Farmboy Luke, it also adds in with his Zeta, where at the start of each of his turns, he gains 10% crit damage and it stacks until the end of the encounter. This basically means that after every 2/12 attack, Farmboy Luke's going to gain 40% turn meter. He's going to move. He's going to use his basic attack. He gains another 40% turn meter. So he's going to be moving a lot on his own, just like Clone Sergeant. And you can see all these dots that he's putting out also kind of help deal with, add a little bit more damage in as well. They don't really add up to much on their own, but with the amount of dots that Luke can put out with his basic attack every time he scores a critical hit, it's really going to add up. It's going to do at least a few thousand more each time for each topple, so it's going to add up eventually. But on its own, the dots aren't really impressive, but the dots do have some viability with other teams. We'll discuss that here in a minute. Now, the one other issue with Farmboy Luke for this raid is that he is pretty squishy overall. Even at gear 11, he does not have a lot in the health protection department. So when you're running him in a team like this, when the tank comes out of the topple and uses his dots, gives Luke 3 or 4 dots, and then one of the side turrets attacks him, you're very likely going to lose Farmboy Luke. There's not much you can do about that. You could try buffing up his health and protection with the mods, but at that point, you're really starting to sacrifice his damage, and once you start sacrificing his damage, he has not become as good a raid character overall with the Zeta on him. So it's not a good trade-off. It's really more hoping for RNG and hoping that the tank ignores him and goes for someone like Fives or one of the other clones so you can really stack up that protection regeneration. So that's the one issue to talk about with Farmboy Luke, is that he's just not a very healthy character overall. So if you don't have someone to absorb the hits for him, you could very likely lose him, and he's going to be a dangerous character to run in a phase 2 raid like this because of all the attacks that the tank does when it comes out of the topples. Now, when it comes to other teams that Farmboy Luke could be very viable in, you've probably already put 2 and 2 together and said, well, he could really work in a Rebel team, and he definitely can, especially under something like a Wedge and Jelly's lead, where Rebel allies gain turn meter and bonus health when they score a critical hit. That's really going to benefit Luke because that means he's going to gain a 10% turn meter every time he scores a critical hit, so potentially gain 50% turn meter every time he uses basic. That's really going to help him go a lot. He's not going to get as many assists in with a Rebel team like you would with a 212, but with the 15 topples in phase 4, you could definitely start to get similar damage numbers with Farmboy Luke there. And then, of course, with the healing up, that's really going to make sure he stays alive with his health protection being as squishy as it is. So he's definitely a good fit in Rebel team. You could run with like a Wedge, Biggs, Ezra, R2, or Farmboy Luke. Something like that could definitely do some damage. It's probably not going to be as good as the other team like I've done before with Lando, and I showed that in a different video. You probably won't get the AoE damage that you're looking for with that team, but with a single target damage, it's probably going to be unmatched unless you have something like Princess Leia in there. So it's going to be a pretty good team overall for Rebels in Phase 4 or even Phase 2. For another team that you could use in the raids, he could work really well with his father, Darth Vader, especially you have the Zeta on Vader. We have Zeta teams doing some pretty decent damage already in Phase 2, and you've probably noticed all the dots that Farmboy Luke is putting out with all the critical hits he's landing. All those dots are really going to stack up with Darth Vader because dots never expire under a Zeta lead, so you can really stack up all those dots with Farmboy Luke, plus all the damage he's really going to be doing at the end. He's really doing some nice damage. He's really going to help take down the turrets as well. So looking at a team with Darth Vader, Sidious, Tusken Shaman, Phasma, and Farmboy Luke, definitely a possible team to use in Phase 2 as well. All those dots from Tusken Shaman and Darth Sidious and Farmboy Luke really going to make for a lot of damage on Darth Vader's Culling Blades, where he deals bonus damage per debuff that's dispelled through that ability, and of course the dots don't expire, so they'll come right back after Vader uses Culling Blade. And then Captain Phasma can use her advantage to guarantee critical hits from Darth Vader. That's going to be useful. And then of course Tusken Shaman can heal and give offense up to allies, so there's a lot of usefulness there with that team. Farmboy Luke can make a very good replacement on that team. You could probably replace Boba Fett or Ewok Elder on that team, give a lot more damage, but the survivability is going to be a bit of an issue because you're taking away someone like Ewok Elder, so you're really having to rely on Tusken Shaman. But everybody in that team does have Health Steal, so maybe it's going to be enough to ignore the dots and all the damage the tank does every time it comes out of topples. Who knows, there's only one way to try it out, so we'll have to try it out at some point. But yeah, those are definitely two different teams that he could be very viable in, Rebels and a Darth Vader Zeta team for Phase 2. Both those teams he could definitely make a good fit on. But the one problem with this is that it requires a Zeta investment to make Farmboy Luke a really viable raid character, and at this point, raids are kind of a thing of the past. You're really more focusing on territory battles now, and the Zeta does not have as much usefulness there because, according to the devs, every time that a new wave starts an encounter, it resets the crit damage from Farmboy Luke's Zeta. So a 6-wave combat mission, his Zeta is going to be resetting at the beginning of each wave, so he's not going to stack up a lot of crit damage by the end of the encounter, so he's really not going to be able to contribute all that damage. He could still be useful with the stun on his special, and the dots could be useful, but overall he's not going to replace anybody on your Rebels teams with this Zeta, so there's really no point in using him in territory battles. And Arena, you're only going to be able to move him 5 or 6 times at most, so you're not really going to get a good return on the crit damage there as well. So really, his Zeta does not have much viability outside of raids. So if you're looking for a really solid raid Zeta to throw in, Farmboy Luke could be what you're looking for. But overall, in terms of all aspects of the games, there's really not much you're going to be looking for, because it's not going to be good in Arena, it's not useful in Galactic Wars, and definitely won't have much use in the Territory Battles either. So really, just consider this a raid Zeta and nothing else that you could really go for. So if you're looking for a really nice score with Farmboy Luke, definitely look at the Zeta for the raids, but otherwise definitely don't invest in this Zeta. That is pretty much it for this video, guys. If you all like this video, feel free to like and share it. Subscribe to my channel for more content in the future. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask down below. I'll do what I can to answer them. But as always, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of this video. I will talk to you guys later.